edition of Clearance Jobs Live. I don't know what we're calling this. Lindy Kaiser, Clearance Jobs, Jill Hamilton, Clearance Jobs. We're here to talk about our cleared recruiting metrics. Beautiful paper still exists, people. We printed these out for our Clearance Jobs Connect conference last week. This is a report that Jill Hamilton, our editor, put together for us. So Jill, talk to me about the cleared recruiting metrics. What are some of the statistics you found most interesting? Beautiful report that you can also access on PDF, and the link is in the information about here.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. We heard back from recruiters. They weighed in. We administered the survey this past spring. And I think we asked the question, why do employees leave? This is from a recruiter's perspective. What does HR get back on why employees want to leave? And 56% said they leave for higher compensation. And I think when we're talking about remote work a lot, like that's a big narrative that we have to address and talk about. 7% said they leave for remote work opportunities, which is still when you take that percentage of your workforce or on a contract, it still hurts. But predominantly people want money, or it could be, you could give a retention bonus for them to stay, and they might stay for more money. So all is not lost if their life has to be in a skiff. So I think that was really kind of interesting to see that people ask a lot about remote work, like remote work in the interview process. I have to find it.
Yeah, that was like the top question that people had that asked about. I think, what are candidates asking for in the interview process? It was like flipped. So 56% are asking for it in the interview, but when they tell a company that they're leaving because of compensation. Mm-hmm. That is interesting.
Yeah. And I think it does make it so that, either offering them more money, either on when you're in the interview process, or trying to keep them. I realize people have reevaluated their life during a pandemic, and that definitely makes sense. But money does make it like an option to be able to do things as well, to live that life.
Well, and that's kind of, if you have jobs that have to be in a skiff too, it might make the case of saying like, can we increase the compensation factor here? And will the government be willing to increase its compensation for folks who are in that boat? Maybe it remains to be seen. I feel like you're trying to tip off to the compensation survey, which is also active now on the Clearance Job site, by talking about compensation, Jill. I can't help but think so. We will post,
if you have a clearance, fill it out.
A link to the compensation survey in the comments here too. So if you have an active security clearance, we are currently gathering compensation data, and that is valuable for recruiters too. That's our other our big survey that goes out, that recruiters who use Clearance Jobs will have first access to that report, getting information about compensation within the cleared industry. But these are every single other statistic we frequently get on Clearance Jobs, including time to hire. I think that that number has largely been lower than I think people expected. And I think because it's overall. So all cleared positions, 21 to 40 days. And then all cleared IT positions, the average was 40 to 60 days, which still isn't bad. I think I often cite average government time to hire, which is like 97 days, I think is the last reported number I saw. And that's pretty close to what we see. So I didn't think that 21 to 40 days for time to hire was terrible.
Right. And because, the telling number is that it's in line with internal overhead positions take generally about 21 to 40 days, as well as all your typical cleared positions. It's just when you get into, your IT, the cleared IT positions, that could be a little bit harder for you. It gets the timeline then shifts and gets
and
longer.
Next time we'll have to ask about maybe hiring. I know, I always like to add questions, and they're like, please don't add any more questions to the survey because people don't want to take long surveys. But the difference between clearance level 2. So this is just by all cleared position, IT positions. I think from, talking to a lot of our partners and customers last week, I think one of the things I always forget how that polygraph candidate is really like that purple squirrel unicorn of trying to hire that person. So probably if you had the cleared IT professional with a polygraph, you would have to double or triple any metrics that we see here.
Right.
And the other metric was cost to hire. Now, the surprising thing for me was how few people actually track cost to hire.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was surprising to you. I thought more people track their average cost to hire.
I think it is surprising as well. And maybe they just have an overall set budget for all their positions. And so it kind of is a little bit slushy in how the funds mix around for however many. I mean, like that's the other challenging thing. But and I'm sure like the smaller you are as a company, maybe the more you're not tracking by specific positions that you're hiring for. Katie says she never tracked cost to hire as a small contractor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I think the smaller you are, the harder it is to like focus in on some of those things. But the average cost was a little under $5,000. And that included different things like background checks, advertising costs, career fairs. I'm sure they split it across all the different openings that they have. So there's just a lot that goes into that. But I think it's good to track it, especially comparing to like the cost of an open position. You know, one of the things I was looking at was the sign-on bonus. And just especially when you talk about the polygraph positions and how powerful a sign-on bonus can be, where you can get somebody's yearly salary, at least for their first year, to be super competitive, even if you're not agreeing to, because you might not be able to put them into a labor category that would allow you to be competitive with industry compensation. But with a sign-on bonus that's pretty hefty, they can, and say you have to at least stay for a year or you have to pay it back kind of thing, you're at least guaranteeing that position is filled for that whole year. And I think your upper management is going to be more prone to going with that, because the cost of an unfilled, like, it's a loss of revenue. So if you can just calculate what their labor category is for a whole month, that's lost revenue to the company, you know, or whatever the percentage that the company would make. If it's 7%, if it's like a cost plus fixed fee contract or something, you can say it's going to be X amount of dollars this month that you won't get if this position doesn't get filled. So I recommend we give them a $25,000 sign-on bonus. Crazy, but
well, no, we have that
cost savings.
That's a metric we put together. So we have some reporting on that. I don't know if it's an article on the news site or where I know we've provided it internally for sure. The cost of an unfilled cleared position, where, I mean, considering labor rates, and I think you even drill down to like the average, just general contractor labor rate. If you have an unfilled position, you are losing a significant amount of money. And that's where, again, if you can get a sign-on bonus, the average sign-on bonus was $5,000. But we know from clearance jobs, we've seen sign-on bonuses as high as $30,000. I think even $40,000 for some positions, depending on the role. And that makes sense in terms of filling a position. And then what recruiters have talked about, or, you know, hiring managers, they only have so much flexibility on the actual compensation, because that's tied into the labor rates and the contract requirements. So sometimes you're like, well, I'd rather have higher compensation than a sign-on bonus. Well, that's due to that labor category, that there's just not the flexibility for the hiring manager, program manager contract. But the company itself might have the ability to pay a sign-on bonus. Yeah. And Katie says, sign-on bonus is so hot right now. I love a good Zoolander reference. What is the gesture for that? And is it LinkedIn appropriate? I don't know.
We'll just talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Okay. I'm going to get back to the report. I'm going to keep reading. So again, download. We're talking about our cleared recruiting metrics report. We have the link. You can download it now, get all of the data sets that we're talking about, share it with your hiring managers, share it with folks within your company to tell them these are what the averages are. And then, somebody talked about the hot topic of how is vaccination requirements affecting all of this. Stay tuned for future surveys. It's hard. It's hard to be a cleared recruiter right now. There's so many things happening.
Yeah. There's only so much you can do about a government mandate except to wait out to see what happens and then take steps that you have to take. So
Yeah, I feel like there should be like a dual-hatted like counselor, therapist, emotional support person / recruiter, because that's what I've talked about. I think there's just a lot of people that want to vent about all of the requirements and even, all of the changes, and like life is hard. But again, if the requirements are for companies over 100, I think candidates are going to have a hard time finding a position where they don't come up against that requirement. So it's not just a cleared industry. It's going to be working for a major company. You're going to hit that. So recruiters are just going to have to deal with, I think you're going to get a lot of complaints from candidates about the vaccine requirements. And again, I would just continue to have, I like to blame the man. So like find the policy and just continue to link to like, this is either our company policy, this is the government policy, this is the policy, and that's about all you can do. So we don't, our cleared recruiting metrics cannot solve that problem, but it can provide a lot of other information about cleared recruiting metrics. And then I think interesting to know, like average requisitions, each recruiter hires, average number of applications for requisition. I thought this was interesting that most had 10 or less. Yeah. I don't know if that was surprising to you. 10 or less.
I think it was that you don't, it just kind of highlighted it's not about quantity. I mean, although you need you want the pool to be out there, because that is one of the challenges with the cleared industry, is that the talent pool, people with security clearances, is not as big as we need it to be, which creates that supply and demand issue. But for your own specific positions, that you don't need like 50,000 applicants there, because that takes a lot to sift through and to really know whether they meet the requirements. You just need that small number that you can kind of narrow down and go from there. So I think that made sense to me, but it was good to see that validated. So I also thought retention was an interesting topic, because I think, or did I jump ahead of you? You were going to ask me something else.
No, I can hear the sound of your pages flipping.
So I know, it's right up.
It's not real sound of paper against a microphone, people. It's the sound of paper.
I will stop that then.
It's like a whooshing sound. It sounds like
you're listening.
Okay.
I thought you were saying hear my dog.
Yeah, I mean, the dog is just par for the course. I don't have my clearance job as backdrop, so now you can see my map of Africa behind me. This office doubles as a classroom, people. This is called multitasking. So
yeah,
you can study up on Africa. There's a quiz later.
There you go.
Anyway, so there was another question about average cost to obtain a TS clearance, or for an employer to obtain a TS clearance. This is one that I always like to answer when people ask it, because we get this question on the site a lot. We have an article about that, the cost of obtaining a security clearance, and a contractor does not pay any of that cost. And so the person commented there, the cost is $50,000. Whoever told you that, that's fake news from the internet. That employer's lying. I mean, there are tertiary costs to obtaining a security clearance. So the cost, that might be the cost of obtaining an FSO, or maintaining a personnel security program has costs. But employers, contractors, do not pay for security clearances. It is an inherently government function. The government pays for security clearances. Those are all paid by the government agencies obtaining them. The cost of a TS clearance is, I think, about $5,400, $5,400, not $50,000. But that's a government cost. So the cost of the contractor is really based on if they can put the person into the position because of their contract requirements. That's why we come into this issue of like, they want people who already have the security clearance, because some of their contracts require people that already have a clearance when they start. So, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway. Sidebar on cleared recruiting metrics. Those are clearance processing times metrics. We also released the average security clearance timeliness for DoD industry on the site this week.
Right.
Jill, she knows. She's on the site. I like to throw it out there. So if you want to know how long it takes to get a DoD industry clearance, TS clearances were up slightly. The DoD CAF, the adjudication side, maybe had a rough time, so it took a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for your questions and comments, everybody. Are there any that I didn't get to, Jill?
Not that I can see. I do think like we'll be talking a little bit more on clearance jobs about retention as well, because that with a smaller talent pool, that's going to be a big thing. And I kind of wanted to highlight too the biggest thing to push when it comes to either recruiting or retaining your workforce with this is like money is a big driver, but also mission. So you might not be able to offer remote work. That was the biggest takeaway from like what recruiters are hearing. Like, even if you don't have full remote options like you'd like to, you might have some hybrid, or you might not have any, depending upon the position. The mission is what many of the younger generation is after, and I think really driving that home is like part of the brand of working in national security. Is you, no matter what you do, you are supporting the mission. It might seem like a regular job, but it's part of a bigger piece of the it's a piece of the puzzle, if you will. So I think that goes a long way.
You are part of an exclusive club, the Cleared Community Club. Only so many people can obtain a security clearance. Only so many people want to obtain a security clearance. It is a very limited niche talent pool. So,
and I think it's easier to push that when I found outside the DC area when I worked at a defense contractor, they really pushed, we're so cool, we're in national security, because they were like one of the few in a very small town. Whereas I heard that a little less maybe in the DC area, just because there's a lot more that contribute towards either national security in a different capacity, or they're working for Congress around here. Like, so it's a little bit harder, but I would actually say just keep pushing that and driving what it means to support national security and why they should stick with us and stick with cleared work. So,
yeah. Hey, stick with it. The best missions, the best work.
Hang in there.
And I do think I just read an article about how like the Pentagon is stuck in like 1950s policies, office culture. I don't necessarily disagree, but I still love the Pentagon. I loved it. I think you either love it or you don't. I think Jill knows people that don't love the Pentagon. I loved it. They had a Dunkin' Donuts and a Starbucks and a chocolate shop and a CVS. You never have to leave. You can live there. And
I don't dislike it. I think it's like that people maybe expect you to live there. I think that's where people start to struggle a little bit. But you're right. Like there's a lot in there. Time might just seem to stop when you're in there. But it is really cool. So much cool thing. Like people have done really great work there. So that is great. Anytime that I'd been over there years ago. I think my issue is I was pregnant at the time and I had to walk from the bus stop outside the Pentagon all the way in. And that just was harder.
Well, I knew people I worked with used to get a handicap sticker when they were pregnant, just so you get a close parking spot. Because otherwise you're in North Parking. You have to walk 2 miles to get into the office. You don't want to do that when you're 9 months pregnant. They have like tell their OBGYN like really like I can't walk this far and still get into work, please.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should say that. Are we live? Am I allowed to say that? I mean, I don't know. Pregnancy, a handicap? I don't know. What are the rules, people? Anyway.
Well, it's more that I would just arrive like, because our client was on site and so I was off site. And so it just was a whole process to get there. And I'd just be like all flustered and like, just give me a minute.
But anyway, it is great work, national security work. I love seeing all the comments come in. Somebody asked about, getting ready to separate from the military. Please join us at Clearance Jobs. We love veterans. They're a significant part of the community. We have lots of resources, resume templates, information. I think if you're under DOD, which if you're military, you're responding there, they're asking if they should re-up their clearance before they leave. If you're under continuous vetting, you should have a current clearance when you leave. And that's been a common question, but you should have that 24-month mark to get re-engaged. You shouldn't need a new investigation, quote unquote. So there was a time when service members used to do that. Hey, I want to make sure my investigation is current before I leave. Right now, when you leave, your investigation is current because you are currently enrolled in continuous vetting. And as of now, the policy still is you have 24 months, even if you leave, use your GI Bill, take a commercial sector job to hop back in. So you shouldn't need to ask your security officer to re-up your clearance, but you can certainly make sure that you're under continuous vetting before you leave and that your clearance is current.
Yeah.
Cornelius wants to rewatch this. The only thing better than watching it live is watching us again, Cortelius. Please do.
So true. So true.
That's secretly my mom, my dad, somebody. I don't know. No, it's not. Cortelius. Thank you for joining us. Anything else, Jill? Cleared recruiting metrics. Download your copy.
Yeah. Stay tuned if you're a recruiter. We're coming again in the spring to check, and then we can compare year over year. So you can be part of that metric building process and then compare your own, what you remember answering based against industry standards, see how you stack up. It's the same thing if you're have a security clearance right now. The compensation survey is out there. So answer that, because I love the feedback and knowing and seeing all the different things, and like, we can make all these great reports that really help you as a candidate or help recruiters. So if you have an email asking to fill out a survey from us, say yes to the survey.
Say yes. You can be part of amazing data like this. Get your voice heard. And if you disagree with the data, send us an email, editor@clearancejobs.com. We'd love to hear from you too. Or if you didn't get access to the survey before, or if you liked the comp survey, let us know. We will find you.
For sure.
Awesome. On that note, thank you, Jill Hamilton.
Thank you
for producing this
great
cleared recruiting metrics.
You're welcome. Love